All right, guys, welcome to Justice is a Process. We're back here today with another show here. Today, the topic again is Tyrone Tucker, and we're going to be going over more information, more things that point to Tyrone Tucker's innocence. And as I've been looking into this case, getting into the videos, I want to share some things with you. We're going to get into um, video that I think is pertinent based on the testimony that we heard last week. And we're going to get into also listening to some of what I believe will be presented in court this coming week. I believe it'll be this from this deposition that was captured back in 2020. And we're going to go over just some clips, not the entirety of any of these items, but pertinent clips that I think add to understanding this case and understanding the injustice that is happening before our eyes down here in Florida. And the injustice that we're seeing is the fact this trial is happening at all, because we have an innocent man, a man that the state knows is aware. If you see the pleadings, and again, we're not going to have documents today, but I'm going to have another show where we're going to go over some documents, and we're going to go over the fact that the things you're seeing, the state is aware of, the prosecutors are aware of, and they're choosing to proceed with this case, and they're choosing to attempt to put a man they know is innocent behind bars for the rest of his life, and that is disturbing and absolutely concerning. So, anyways, without further ado, we're going to get into some videos here. So, where we're going to start with, this is a witness that I expect that we will see next week. And we've already watched some of his testimony, but it's Todd O'Quinn. And this is a very, very strong witness, I believe, that if he testifies, if he's able to come to court and testify, that you're going to see that this gentleman offers some very, very strong evidence and in favor of um, Tyrone Tucker's innocence. And yes, I am aware, and I'm going to show you clips that shows, yes, he is a friend of Tyrone Tucker. He knows Tyrone Tucker. That's why it's so powerful. So the first clip I want to show you is going to deal with that specifically. And we're going to get into the relationship that they had, because that's what makes him such a strong witness. He knew who he was. He knows what he looks like. And he's been pretty consistent in the fact that it wasn't Tyrone. That's not who it was at the scene. But first clip we're going to pull up here. How does Todd O'Quinn know Tyrone Tucker? So let's listen from Todd O'Quinn at a deposition, or I believe it was a deposition, or it was a recorded statement back in 2019.
Hi, Tucker.
Personally.
Okay. And how long have you known him?
A couple of years.
And where did you know him from?
Originally from the Marathon County Jail. We were 2 years ago. We were together up there on. He was in there on a sailboat issue or something, and I was in there for something else. We met there at Marathon Jail.
So you met at the Marathon in the county jail. Okay. And did you establish a friendship after that?
Absolutely.
Okay. And how often would you see him? Would you see Ty?
Daily.
Where?
All over. Stock Island, Key West, Cots. That's just in passing, but we if nothing else, we always met Sundays at Shrimp Daddy's to they have some free food there. Watch the game, watch NASCAR, or watch the game if it's football season. So that's kind of like, we interact every day, but we make it a point to go there on every Sunday.
Okay. And so.
So I know him more than just glancing at him. I know him. I mean we're
You're friends.
We hang out pretty good.
Okay.
He's different than a lot of the
Why? What makes him different?
Well, I mean, just because that again that crowd is just we have the same thing. We both work, and a lot of people come down here. It's just you don't want to. It's just like with the treehouse. You don't want to get with all the craziness all the time and all the drama and stuff. And you can I separate it all with Tyrone. He doesn't. He's not on the same level as the, he's actually more intelligent and stuff, and I can relate to him. Out of all these people, that's who I gravitated to. So.
Okay. And have you ever seen Ty be aggressive?
I've seen him hold back or not fight another guy just because of his discipline up in marathon. A guy over a car game threatened him or something, and he never got mad or threw a punch or anything.
So you've never seen him be violent?
Never.
Okay. And you've never seen him act aggressively toward anyone?
Ever. He helps everybody. I've never even seen him. I don't even think I've seen him upset the whole time I've known him. Very laid back.
What do you mean he helps everybody? What do you mean by that?
Just he's that type. He's just that type of guy. He's always run around and gets along with everybody and help give everybody. That's the other point about the thing that just doesn't make sense, because he's actually my voice the reason down here too, because when I go off and want to do all the what I'm saying, he'll be like, but again, if I'm gonna go, he'll give me the money to go. He's crazy, you know what I'm saying? I mean, he doesn't want you to go, but I tried to. He didn't party with me. He didn't. It was just uncanny for him to even be there, to even be around. He wouldn't. I've asked him to go and he wouldn't go. So
go to the treehouse.
You're right.
Okay.
He just doesn't like that environment.
All right. So significant points that you should take away from that. Obviously, Todd O'Quinn and him are friends. Todd O'Quinn knows what he looks like. Todd O'Quinn hangs out with him all the time, right? And he would have known that Tyrone Tucker was that other guy. Secondarily, he describes who Tyrone Tucker is. He's not the type that would even be around the treehouse. That wasn't his scene. He's a calm, level-headed guy. He's the type of guy that if he was going to be hearing these things, he'd be saying, listen, guys, don't go do this. Whereas Rory and Travis, more the type of individuals that would say, hey, man, they want to go get high, they want to go get money, they head out. But Tyrone's not going to stop him. So he's sitting there playing dominoes, drinking some Fireball, whatever. He passes out, goes to sleep. He's on about his business for the evening. He's not going to intervene because he's going to say, all right, do what you do. But he's the type of individual that is certainly not going to get involved in something like that. And you're talking, this is Todd O'Quinn. This is a guy that was at the scene. If he would have seen Tyrone Tucker there, rest assured he would have been able to recognize him. So let's get into what Mr. O'Quinn actually sees at the scene. And we're going to start here now and get into that. Give me one moment. And all right, so this next clip is going to talk about Todd O'Quinn's opinion on who he thinks is responsible for this, and what he thinks the cause of all this was. And he's going to talk about an individual who the police knew about, have known about, hid from the public, and then she now ultimately has passed away and is unable to testify. But you're going to hear from a guy who was in the inner workings of that treehouse. He's going to tell you why he believes this individual that he names is in fact the one that was responsible for this. She's the one who set everything in motion. She had an issue with Paula. Paula is the lady that was on the stand on Friday, and she sets this in motion by letting Rory know or putting word on the street out about money and drugs being at the house, to which Rory finds out, to which Rory goes and recruits, which makes perfect sense. Rory doesn't need 2, 3, 4 people to go to Paula. He just said, hey, he needed Travis to drive the truck over. So they drive over, black truck, black clothes, jump out of the truck, run in, do this thing, jump in the truck, drive away. And that way it would be, and again, it makes sense he would use Travis, since Travis isn't a known person over there in that treehouse. So let's listen here.
That you not only heard Anthea Clay make threats, but that she said that she was going to get back at Paula somehow.
Absolutely.
Okay. Do you think that the incident was related to Anthea Clay?
I do.
Okay. Why?
I think it really, at the end of the day, it just comes down to her and Paula just having to be just two women not getting along. and wanting Matt. She's just upset that she has to go.
Did you see Anathea Clay that night, the night of the incident?
I didn't see her that night,
No.
which was kind of unusual. She was usually there every night.
So you thought it was unusual that she wasn't around.
And then something else take place, right? You know, as soon as she disappears, she's not there. And that's the other thing too, because Paula works on a schedule that if you're not right there watching it, you know, witnessing it, you would never know when do I go and how. When is, you know, you want to make the best. Oh, if somebody with firsthand knowledge is what I'm saying that has. Paula was very open with it. That's the other thing about the things. She wasn't very open, kind of friendly, you know, about it. It's not like a drug atmosphere.
All right, guys. So there you have it. Todd O'Quinn talking about why this thing happened, what was really going on here, and that is Anathea Clay had an issue with Paula, and he was saying he believed 100% that that's where this thing came from, and that she essentially set this thing up, let people know there were money and drugs in the house, and that this thing originated because of her. So we're going to move into now talking about his version of events, what he saw, and you're going to see there's pieces here that I'm going to show you from other witnesses that support what the generality of what he saw. And he's going to explain or take the time as he's talking here to explain, hey, he was nervous when you heard that first statement. We went over that first statement. I showed you guys that first statement. I showed you the next day. There were some problems. There were some things he left out. And he's going to get into all of that here as we move into this next statement. So give me one moment here. Let me get this up.
And what did you see?
I saw Matt with his back to the railing and another person facing him, and they were exchanging blows or fighting.
And what did you do?
I ran up to the top of the stairs and swung at the one that he was engaged with to help him.
And what did he look like?
He was in a mask.
A mask, a skull mask?
Skull mask, everything completely covered.
Okay, and what color?
Black, like Halloween. Just black.
Black, all black from head to toe?
Head to toe.
Okay. And what happened after you swung at him?
He kind of went back, and when he turned to me, that's when I actually saw from the side view. There's nothing on the mask that they wore. There was nothing on the sides. The raised white features on the mask were just in the front. So when I first came up to see him, it was you know just nothing stood out. But when he turned at me, then I saw the mask, and then I saw what appeared to be a knife in his hand, and he lunged at me and took a.
And your pinky got cut.
Right, and then I turned and went, and that's when I ran off the property again and stayed on the retaining wall.
And you tried to get help?
Right, yelling.
Okay, yelling for the police?
Right.
All right. What did Matthew look like when you saw him struggling?
Just real defensive, and I just saw little red spots on his.
On the front of his shirt?
On the front of his shirt.
Okay. And so did you ran back over to CVS and you stood on the wall?
Right.
All right. And did you have a phone with you?
I did, but I can't recall what happened to it.
All right.
Why, I just didn't call myself.
Did you call?
I didn't.
All right. So you don't remember if you had your phone on you or you didn't, or?
I didn't have it on me, so I don't know. I ran out of my flip flops too, so I don't know if it was on the ground somewhere. But I do remember when I got over to CVS that I was asking other people to call, so I didn't have it.
Who did you ask to call the police?
Some other patrons, some other people that were at the parking lot.
Okay.
In CVS.
All right. And you stood there to try to.
I saw the person when I thought was up there.
All right, so we are going to move. I'm going to to switch up here. We're going to go back to that test. We're back to that statement, but I want to show you what the patrons say they saw in their interaction. So let's move to that here in just a second. Let me get this queued up here. But we're going to listen to, this is a young lady named Gabby and her boyfriend. And she says that she was there. She witnessed this whole thing, and she's going to discuss exactly what she saw at that moment, as he just said he went over there to CVS parking lot. So we're going to listen to what she had to say. So let's jump in here. It's quite interesting, and I want you to focus on something here, because there was a comment made that said one of the issues with O'Quinn's testimony is, or O'Quinn's version is, he didn't see anyone get in a car, and he said he didn't see Travis get in a car. But we're going to get into that when we hear O'Quinn and you hear him talking, because he doesn't necessarily say he doesn't see that. He just says he lost him. He just says he's not sure what's going on. And remember, he's in a mix of flight. He even acknowledges, I'm looking left, I'm looking right, I'm focused up here, I'm focused over here. Now, this young lady sees a significant situation, but what she also sees is the general gist of what Todd O'Quinn says. But very importantly, she says she sees Rory Wilson get in a car that's waiting there for him. Or she said the skinnier guy, but I'm thinking it's Rory in this case, based on the sequencing of events. And she thought she saw him get in a passenger side, which would have indicated that Travis, who would have already come out, would have gotten into the truck and was waiting. Rory then comes out, gets in the truck, and Todd O'Quinn's just missing these things because his back's turned, he's running, he's looking, he's acknowledging. He doesn't know exactly where Rory went. He doesn't know exactly where the black figure went. He doesn't know where any of these people went. He just he's missing these things. Not to mention that as he gets into, I believe there was some beer drinking, there was some drug smoking, there were some things going on that absolutely would cause you to miss certain details in certain events. It would cause you to perceive things as, well, I saw him go here, but I don't know where he went. I don't know what happened. And, let's just listen. But anyways, we're going to jump in here. Let's listen to this, because this is extremely important when you're looking at it in the context of analyzing O'Quinn and looking at how this all plays out.
Tonight, you guys went over to CVS, right?
Gotcha, okay. So we pull into CVS and we're in his truck, and we pulled out about on facing CVS about 5 spots from where the house was and everything. And then I opened the truck door, and then this man, I forgot his name, but when I called 911, he gave his name. They have his name, but blonde haired, no shirt, tattoos, shorts, was running toward.
And that man would be Todd O'Quinn. Okay, that's who she just described. So we'll pick up here.
Towards us, and was they're dead, call 911, he's coming. And I'm I was shook, so I was didn't really know exactly what to do, but I grabbed my phone, and then he was he stabbed him, they're dead, you have to call 911. So I'm okay, so I call 911, and then he's coming after me, and he kept showing me his hands, and he had some blood on his hands or something. And I was okay, and then he's it's not funny, I wasn't laughing, but he's it's not funny, call 911. So I'm okay, so I call, and then I didn't know what to say, but I was just the guy kept running towards to other people to call or something, or he wanted help, and he said that the guy was coming, and that's all that I knew. So then I called 911, and I didn't exactly know what to say, so I was hi, somebody just asked me to call 911, said that 2 people were dead. And then I didn't know much of anything, but I was watching the house, and as I was watching the house, this guy, pretty skinny, was wearing dark pants and a black hoodie zip up, and put the hood over his head, and then
was he wearing a mask or anything like that, or no?
He said the guy said he was wearing a mask, but I couldn't really see.
I think he was, just because I couldn't see a face unless he was really, really dark face, right. But I just saw a hood, but I couldn't see anything, so I wouldn't be surprised if it was a mask.
Okay.
And he went towards this car, and then at that time I had turned around to talk to the other guy, and I'm because they had asked me his race, so I'm well, he's white, and I was asked him for his name, and that's when I gave it to him. And then when I turned around, I saw him get in the car, and I don't think he was driving. He was not. He had gotten in the car. I don't think think he was driving because like the way it just like sped off, there was like really no way unless the car was on. But then they sped off to like where the street is to the stop sign, like super fast, but then stayed at the stop sign for like a little too long for somebody who was trying to get away maybe or something.
Okay.
And they took a very calm left, like not towards US 1. And it was like a black 4-door sedan vehicle. I couldn't tell you what it was. I tried. It was just too dark. Didn't get license plate or anything, but
I'm gonna do draw. You're gonna have to excuse my horrible drawing.
All right. So the significant facts here we've just gotten. Okay. She's saying he got in a black 4-door vehicle. Now his truck had 4 doors on it. It's dark, right? There's a distance. So that is Travis's truck that allegedly left. That's his truck. Now I know she calls it a sedan, but you could see a truck as a sedan in that type of darkness. Says it's a Ford, which means she had to have seen some sort of Ford emblem or something on it. And I mean, but the significant fact is she said it was a black vehicle. Travis's truck is black. She sees this man come out. She sees him get in. I believe she saw Rory. They were saying how dark it was. The boyfriend said, yeah, I thought he had a mask on. But the significant thing is gets in a car and speeds off. Now, Todd O'Quinn does not say anything about a car, doesn't say anything about that. But again, some would attribute that and say, well, is Todd O'Quinn hiding something? Or maybe it's just he really was he's all over the place. He's probably a little drunk, probably a little high, and he's freaking out. And again, he's not seeing the whole picture. He's seeing what he can see, seeing what he can remember, and that would be my assessment. But this is important because she sees them get in or that individual get into a black vehicle, a dark colored vehicle. And that we know Travis has a dark colored vehicle. And you're going to see O'Quinn say he was able to see the individual when he pulls the mask out, not Travis, but we're going to get into all of that here in a minute. But this is very, very significant. Give me a moment here. We're going to pull this up, the next video clip. We're going to go back to the Todd O'Quinn video here. All right, and now we're gonna pick up where we left off on this video here.
Exit the property and take a right and get about 50 feet, take off the mask. I started yelling again, and he turned, kind of cornered away, looked straight at me, and again, there's a little window of view there by the boats where they go, but it was when he first came out, it was a clear shot, and it was just a younger guy, took off running.
Okay. What did he look like?
He was younger, shorter, curly, brownish, reddish hair, little,
White male?
white.
Okay. Was it Franklin Tyrone Tucker?
Absolutely not. It was,
Did you recognize the person?
no.
Did you know John Johnson Travis? Do you know him?
I didn't even know that there was 3 people involved until I.
So there he is. He answered the question. I want you to notice when he answers the question, one of the things you can look at is is their body language in sync with their answer. And he not just says no, but I mean he's shaking his head no when he says emphatically it was not Tyrone Tucker. Now I want you to tie in this because here we have Todd O'Quinn here, right? He's just said he sees the guy leaving. We have the young lady who says she saw an individual come out and get in a car, right? Now, what we've got to do here now, one of the things we're gonna take a look at here next is there's video from the Cosme parking lot, right? So give me a moment here while we get this queued up. All right, so I have the video queued up here. Let's jump in here and we're gonna set the scene. So this is the Cosme parking lot. So where we're gonna focus on here, give me a moment here. We're gonna actually see if we can really zoom in here on this. I don't know if it'll let us. Okay. So what I want the focus to be on here. Hold on here. We're going to have to go back a little bit so I can make sure everyone's focused where I want this to be focused on. And that is, we need to be focused right in here. Okay, so you're going to see the truck come through here, but this is the area you want to focus on because you're going to see the truck arrive, right? So let's focus, and then you're going to see individuals get out and walk through here. Now, this is significant because we've just heard Gabby, right? So there's a couple of assumptions that we have to make. Number one, we have I believe CVS, if I'm not mistaken, is somewhere, is going to be, I think, up over in this area, if I'm not mistaken, or it's like in this direction. So what we have to assume is Gabby, they're coming this way. They're walking. The treehouse is right over here. The most credible witness in all of this is Gabby, right? What does she say she sees? She says she sees a man come out, jump in a car, and it speed off, right? It's a dark colored car. We see a dark colored car come up. It parks right over here. Treehouse is right over here. So we have to assume everything she saw and that the car she saw that individual get into would have been this truck that would have been parked out here, and that it answers the question, was that truck there or not? And if that truck was there, if it was parked, then that means Travis was not gone. He did not drive off. He was there. And as you're going to see these two individuals walk off, we can assume it looks very much like one comes from the driver's side, one comes from the passenger side. Anyways, we're going to watch it once zoomed in, and then we're going to zoom back out and watch this footage. There's the truck arriving right there, and you can see how that could look like maybe a Ford. Parks right there. Now, pay attention here because the next video, you want to see where you can see the truck right in here. There's the door opening, and you're going to see the men come out this area right over here, emerge on the other side of the boat. And there they come. And there he comes. Now notice he's coming. They're separated. I want you to look at the width of separation here. Okay? Because this is extremely, extremely important. And again, something that should be taken into account because what's being suggested here is that there were 3 people in that truck. That Travis stayed in that truck. So Ty would have been coming out of the back. Now, I guess it's possible he could have come out from behind the driver's seat, in something, but we're going to assume no. He's pulling up. They're getting out. Ty, there's not going to be someone else there. We would assume he would more likely than not slide over. So both men would have come out this side. So you would have expected them to come out behind each other, not next to each other. If 2 guys get out, driver's side, passenger side, they walk out around the truck. Watch how they come out around here. Let's play it. There comes the truck. It's parked. It slides in right over here. Now watch as these 2 men come on. We're going to try to pause it so you can see the space and separation between the 2 men that it appears they're coming around a vehicle. One's on one side, one's on the other. And having walked right off what I believe would have been a sidewalk right here that this guy would have got out. And here they come. Now look, he's trailing behind. Not directly behind him, but there's separation as if he's out here in the middle of the street, having come out from the driver's side and come around to this side, to which this guy's leading the way. And here he comes, having come from the driver's side of that vehicle. Now, let's watch this not blown up here. And we'll watch as this unfolds. So, and now watch again. I blew it up, but you're going to see the truck come in. It's coming up right now. Oh, no, actually, sorry. It moved on to the next one. I apologize. Hold on. We went to video 2. Get back to the first video here. All right, there's the truck arriving. You just saw the truck arrive. You're going to see the door open over here. gets out of this side. You're not seeing two doors. You can even see the dome light in there, which would indicate the car was turned off, not on. And then you're going to see him come, and he's coming as if he's coming right out from the street. This is exactly what you would expect. Two guys who were walking from one side of the car. He's coming up the sidewalk. This guy's coming out from the driver's side and coming straight down. 100% when you look at that. Now, here comes the next video. Now, this is the next video that we're going to see here, and you're going to see an individual running. This is Travis, who I believe is coming into the car here. Keep watching right in this area. There he comes running. Again, outside of the street, as around the car is still here. You can still see it here in the middle, right? Now we're watching video number 3. This is you're going to see Todd, and you're going to see the second man come back out in this one. And watch again, be watching in this area. There he comes, and he's on the sidewalk because he's coming. This time he's running right over here, and he's getting back in that car, and the video cuts before you see him leave or speed off. I'm not even certain you would have seen him leave or speed off because his lights would have probably been off because they're trying to avoid detection, I guess is what we could potentially suggest there. So, I mean, that's significant to me because when you apply, and again, when you're looking at things, you have to understand eyewitness testimony is very unreliable, believe it or not. And that's why you can have many, many people getting the same things. But what you have to do is parse together the different pieces. Take the most credible, take into effect what people's conditions, their mindsets, their state of minds are, and then you have to parse it all together. But what we have here is a circumstantial case that can absolutely be made that you could say, we have a young lady who's got nothing in this at all, doesn't know anyone. She makes an observation, gets into a black Ford, or what she thinks is a black Ford, dark colored vehicle. She sees a man. We have security footage. 2 guys show up, car's there. You don't see it ever pull away. You then see one guy come out. You see the other guy come out, all in the same direction. And you have a witness that says she saw a man come out and get in the passenger side of the dark colored vehicle, and then it waited a little bit, and then it drives down the road. And for whatever reason, we don't have the next 20 seconds after he gets in the vehicle. That's all the snippet. Maybe it exists. Maybe it's there. But he drives down the road and then calmly makes a left-hand turn, which I believe would be heading back in the direction of the warehouse. So, I mean, to me, this is evidence, and then you saw the 2 individuals come out. This is evidence there were 2 people there. 2 people. That's it. 2 people there. That would be Rory Wilson and Travis Johnson. And Travis Johnson was brought into this for one reason. He had a car, and Rory wanted to get the hell out of there and didn't want to be driving away from this thing because he needed to go in, hit up Paula, and get her money and her drugs. It went awry, obviously. It went crazy. It went nuts. Now, let's listen to Ben Hansen. This is another individual who, again, will add additional corroboration to Todd O'Quinn in his story. So let me cue this up. Give me a moment here. All right. So this is Ben Hansen. This is from the night of the incident. And listen to the similarities. The reason why this is relevant is because it bolsters. Now, you can even see the differences. He's not sure about the color of the individuals or anything like that. It's dark. That's a theme that goes on. But this is an individual that, again, is there, and he bolsters the bulk of what Todd O'Quinn says happened about him running back in, getting into an altercation. All these things happened and occurred, further bolstering the fact that O'Quinn is giving honest testimony as to what he said he saw, or will give honest testimony when he testifies this week if he does end up testifying. Here we go.
So I didn't have time to put anything on.
Right.
And I came out here, and that guy there was over there.
And he's talking about Todd O'Quinn there.
And he was talking about that he's like, where did the other one go? I'm like, what other one? There's 2 people, right? He said, I guess there was 2 people that were involved, maybe, in the attack. I'm not sure exactly what he meant by that, but he said there was somebody still inside. And I was like, oh shit. So I went in there and I was asking, I shouted up in the tower. I was like, is everything okay up there? And Paula said, call 911. I think it was Paula that said that, call 911. And so I went in my room and I closed the door and I called 911 because I thought something bad's happening, obviously.
Right.
I heard somebody got stabbed, and I wasn't sure exactly who, and I was worried about Matt, and it ended up being he was one of the people that got attacked, I guess. I've known Matt for a while, we're friends, but all these other people, I don't know.
You remember what time this was about?
I don't know, I think it was before 9.
Okay.
Around 9-ish.
Okay.
Maybe.
And you said when you first came out, you saw somebody running out.
Yeah, somebody's going out the gate.
Do you remember what they were wearing, what they looked like, anything like
No,
that?
it looked like some tall guy.
White, black.
It's a black guy.
Okay. Did you see his hair or anything like that?
I didn't have a flashlight or anything. There's barely any light. It's very dark in there.
Okay. Would you recognize him if you saw him again, or you only saw the back of him?
Seriously doubt I recognize the person.
Because I know it was dark, but did you see him carrying anything like that?
No.
Okay.
When I came back in, that one guy came back in, and somebody was coming down the steps, and I think that was the guy who had the knife. And
After all this, there was still a guy.
No, when I was going back into my room.
Like after you came out and saw.
Yeah, I was like right there in the doorway. I didn't actually leave the brothel. I was standing right there.
And then there was a guy coming down with a knife.
No, I ran in there, and that guy came in as I was going inside my room, and he was going towards the treehouse, and somebody was coming down the steps, and I think he had a knife or something, and the other guy was like, oh, like, I don't know if he was attacking him or what.
Did you
I didn't want to stick around. I don't want to be out there in like in dangerous area. Like, I don't want to get attacked. I know I had a bat in my hand.
Right.
I probably could have defended myself. But if I just don't want to take the chance of getting hurt.
Do you remember what the guy looked like that you saw? The second
It
one?
was just dark. I don't even know what he's wearing or anything. It was a black guy, though.
Okay.
Because from what I heard, they said it was Detroit. That's the name I heard.
You know a black guy named Detroit?
I don't know. No.
Okay.
All right, so you heard that statement. Obviously, several things jump out here. This individual had an opportunity to look and see both people that O'Quinn sees. His take is he can only describe seeing a black guy. 2, he's seeing that this guy pulls his mask off, but he says he can't see, it's dark. But he doesn't talk about facial hair. He doesn't talk about a beard. He doesn't talk about the one thing that even the police talk about. In fact, there's a recording that I'm going to play for you in a little bit where the police talked about the goatee. Okay? The police talked about the goatee and how important it was. It was making them have problems trying to get a lineup. But yet no one talks about this individual having a goatee. They don't talk about and it was very, very noticeable. The young lady up in the parking lot, what did you not hear from her? No talk about the goatee. Now, she didn't see the first individual, but she, if she did happen to see that or saw any of that, if that was the person she saw jumping into the car, certainly didn't see that. O'Quinn did not mention that. And again, that would have been one of the most noticeable things that you would have said is this guy had a goatee. This guy had noticeable facial hair that you would have seen a half mile down the road. It might have been the only thing you would have seen. Not brought up by one individual. Not brought up by one individual that had eyes on this situation. Not by this individual. Not by Todd O'Quinn. Okay? And most importantly, there's another individual that potentially came in contact. He's a gentleman, Michael Alexander, who says he came in contact with potentially one of with the white guy, and he says he saw him. He describes him as Hispanic descent. No mention of a goatee. And this is an individual allegedly who had a bloody sweatshirt. So we're gonna play that here for you. Give me one moment while we cue that up. All right, so I've got it queued up here. This is the statement on the night of the incident. Now, again, this might be unrelated, but he describes here in this entire incident, and then he has a run-in. Again, make sense of this. You can't really make sense of it, but apparently he jumps in a car, right? He gets out of a car pulls up, comes down there to Tom Thumb, and they try to allegedly dispose of evidence. But he gets an actual look at the white individual. And notice what he doesn't describe. No goatee. Okay? This is very, very significant when you consider it. That this was potentially the other individual, and he describes him as kind of Spanish descent, or he thinks he could have been Spanish descent, and goatee. So let's take a look at this.
Okay. I heard help, help, help 3 times.
Okay.
I stood up to see what was going on, to see if there's something I could do.
Who said help, help, help?
It was a male voice.
Male voice.
It sounded like Matt is the
Sounded like Matt.
proprietor of the property.
Okay.
Okay?
And then what happened?
And then I heard screaming.
Mm-hmm.
2 girls, 2 separate voices.
Okay.
April and Paula.
Okay.
Screaming. You know? So,
Now, I want you to understand the significance of that, what he just told this officer. He heard 2 voices, April and Paula. April is the individual that we just heard from Todd O'Quinn was the one that planned this case. She's Anathea. She goes by April. That is the individual who allegedly, according to Todd O'Quinn, set this thing up. Now, she was gone. She came back on scene later on. She's interviewed very briefly at the scene, and the police claimed they couldn't find her, even though she's living right back down there for years, living right down there in the 2 houses down from where the murder or the incident occurred. And they claim they could never get a hold of her, even though every witness in this whole thing, every witness from the beginning of this thing to the end of this thing, from the moment it begins, says she's the one. And eventually, unfortunately, she's passed away. She's not going to be able to come to Tyrone's trial. She's not going to be able to be called in. She's not going to be able to be questioned. Now, there is a deposition. I don't think it's out. I don't think it's available because she had requested that none of that be allowed to be put out here for anyone's consumption, unless it went to court or was brought up in court. But the bottom line is, he places her at the scene. He also gets a look at the white guy, the unidentified white guy at this point, and he doesn't describe Tyrone. He does not describe Tyrone. That is not who he describes, trying to give him a bloody sweatshirt. Let's take a look and let's continue listening.
I didn't know what to do. I'll be honest with you. I was a little bit scared.
That's understandable.
I didn't know what the hell to do.
So what happened then?
Well, I sat there and watched the squad cars pull up, the lights and stuff, and I figured it was best to stay the hell out of the way and stay out of it.
Okay. Who did you see leaving after all the help, help, help and all that? Who did you see leaving?
Nice gentleman that was here to try to give me the sweatshirt.
You saw him leaving the scene over there.
He left.
And then you saw him here.
Yes, sir. Yes. He doesn't know me, but
He doesn't.
Why would he give you the shirt?
I was wearing a sweatshirt and he tried to give me one. That's kind of...
So you saw him there and you saw him here.
Trashed it.
So let's digest what we've just heard. He just potentially says, I saw him leaving the scene, this individual who hands him a bloody sweatshirt. He says, I saw him leaving the scene, and he comes over here. He doesn't describe him as goateed. He describes him of Hispanic descent. And he says, that nice gentleman, I saw him leaving the scene after the hey, help, help, help. And then I saw him come over here, try to give me a sweatshirt, get in the car, and leave. And the police did not investigate this. There's the videotape that they discussed in this video, that there's videotape of potentially that person, goes away. Never found. No one knows where it's at. No one knows what happened with it. There's reference to it in one of Travis Johnson's interviews, but no one knows what's happened to it to this day. And Officer Pacifico wasn't called to discuss this, or maybe he didn't put reports on it. No one knows what happened to this. This wasn't further investigated. But we have a witness here who saw the white guy. The police did nothing about this. This was ignored. And you're going to see when I show you exactly where the police go. And without any evidence whatsoever, begin pursuing Tyrone Tucker. Again, one thing you've not heard in here: no goatee guy, no baldness, nothing linking Tyrone. It's all Detroit, 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 Detroit. And we're going to talk about how Tyrone gets involved in this briefly here. Now, I want to go to another clip here we're going to queue up, and this is Paula's testimony. Now, you're going to probably see this in court this week, I believe. I saw that reference that Paula was, they're going to have to use her deposition unless they're able to get her in on Monday. And by the way, if you didn't notice, it looked like there's potential here, I'm being told, that Paula was given medication. And she was given medication just prior to her testimony, causing and wreaking complete and total havoc, as you probably saw, the total embarrassment that happened, where she was just completely out of it and couldn't follow instructions. And the state then wanted to cross-examine her with that. Now, you have to wonder, there was no one there with Mr. Tucker's, but the state insisted that one of their investigators be at the hospital. And then she was given medicine when she wasn't supposed to be given medicine. Now, I'm not saying that they had anything to do with it. I'm just saying, you have Paul at the hospital. No one's there on behalf of Mr. Tucker because he is in court representing himself. The only individual that's there is a state investigator. Supposed to be there, we would assume, to make sure she doesn't get medicine, make sure she's ready to go. She appears ready to go in the morning. She appears coherent. She appears able to cooperate. And suddenly she's administered medication. Maybe it was just a mistake by the hospital. Maybe it was, we don't know. But clearly she was not in sound state of mind, and they deprive her of being able to testify, although you kind of get the gist of it. But what the state was successful in doing was striking the entirety of the testimony, and they wanted to cross-examine her in that state. They wanted an opportunity to cross-examine her and take advantage of her and put her in a defensive position. And you could see she unleashed on Mansfield and let her opinion be known. And that was the guy that I believe was going to do the cross-examination of her. And Mr. Mansfield was begging the court to allow her to allow him to get at her. And it's very interesting that was the case. But she did drop some really, really significant nuggets if you can get through all of how it was going and the stream of consciousness and just kind of the rambling. But one of the things she was saying was emphatically, she did not believe it was Tyrone Tucker. Tyrone Tucker did not match the body size, did not match the voice. And that she believed it was an individual that had shown up there. Now, remember, it's significant because Travis Johnson states they did a drive-by of that residence. They went there prior to this, okay, to which Rory and another white man went up and had a conversation with Paula prior to them pulling this off. This was like 30 minutes before, okay? He admits that. Travis Johnson says they did that. She says the individual, based on dress, body stature, what they were wearing, the shirt he was wearing, that individual that was there with Rory, who Travis Johnson puts himself there as that individual, that individual is the one that came back and was the second guy. She didn't know who he was. She doesn't have any ability to identify him. But when she saw Travis Johnson on the news, when she saw him, heard him speak, she now could identify him. That's what she was testifying to on Friday. Go back and watch the testimony. In fact, I could air it. I guess we could watch it together. But that's the significance of what they wanted to keep out. And they insisted on having, again, I'm not saying that they did anything. I'm just saying those are the circumstances. They insisted multiple times in open court, we want our investigator there. Investigator is at the hospital, supposedly to make sure that Paula is okay. Paula is okay in the morning. Paula shows up after they secure everything, and apparently the investigator, they don't want him in the room. They wanted him outside the room doing what? We don't know. They were worried about infectiousness. But what was his purpose there? Why did the investigator need to be there? What were they really doing and what were they monitoring? Heck, they couldn't even assist with the video camera being turned on. It caused a massive delay. The point of the matter is, you're going to hear what they didn't want, and you're going to hear why Mansfield doesn't want it, because I'm going to play a clip and an excerpt from the deposition where she emphatically states Tyrone Tucker was not the individual. Give me a moment. All right, so we're going to pick up here in the testimony where she's describing, I believe this is Mr. Tucker's attorney that's handling this. I'm not 100% certain, but I'm pretty certain it is, because it deals with Tucker's, asking about him and everything. So we're going to pick up here because I believe this is what he's going to want to have played. So let's listen here.
Come across him 5 or 6 times.
Okay, and you've spoken to him on 5 or 6 times?
Yes.
Okay. So you recognize his voice?
Yes.
Okay. You also described his size.
Yes.
Okay, and I think at one point you described how he stood with his arms out, because he's so big.
He's big.
Right.
Big.
So is it fair to say that you not only identified his voice, but you identified his size and his stature?
I knew who he was before he was coming at me.
Okay.
Even in the dark.
Okay. But you also, in addition to his voice, is it fair to say that you recognize his body size, his shape, his stature,
Yes.
the way he stood?
Yes. The way he moves. Yes.
Is that fair to say?
Yes.
And you also recognize the clothes that he was wearing, including these shoe-like boots.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yes.
You described them.
Yes.
And that's because you saw him in the treehouse earlier that day,
Yes, sir.
and he was wearing the same clothes.
Yes, sir.
Now, when he was in the treehouse earlier that day, he was with the man, is that correct?
Yes.
You described him as a white man?
Yes.
Okay. Had you ever seen that man before?
No, sir.
That man was not Ty Tucker.
No, it was not Tiger.
You're absolutely sure, right?
Yes.
Because you know Ty Tucker.
Yes.
You knew Ty Tucker.
Yes.
Okay. So,
Although I didn't know his name at that point.
okay,
I mean, I knew him this, but I didn't even remember his name.
you know it now.
Yes. Yes.
And it was not Ty.
All right, so significant piece right there. And again, this is what she testified to on Friday. So if the jurors pick up on this, we're getting a unique situation here where whatever they were pulling, or whoever pulled what, normally you don't get. Again, this was an issue that was risen earlier in terms of putting support, allowing to put consistent statements. You normally don't get to have 2 consistent statements come in, but she has a statement that just came in that they're not supposed to consider. So of course the judge is going to let that in, but they've heard it, right? And they're going to hear this again, and it's consistent. So this is a unique situation. This is a win for Ty Tucker. Okay, this is a win because he cannot argue that, hey, she said that, but he can certainly point out that he could say she's been consistent in her statements. And the state, I'm sure, will bring in or might bring in, I'm not sure how they will handle this in terms of, if they're allowed to try to impeach her or what they're able to do. But by the time it's closing arguments, they're certainly not going to be reopening cases. I don't think the judge will do that. So he'd be safe to argue and say, she has consistently said, and doesn't have to say when, but he can reference it because she did. She said it live to them. and she's going to say the deposition to them. And that is, white guy shows up with Detroit just before this goes down. That white man is not Ty Tucker. And on top of that, she believes it was that same white man by voice, although she didn't hear him speak, but by body stature, what he's wearing, she believes that's who the second guy was. And she knows for certain it wasn't Ty Tucker. And Travis Johnson puts himself as that second guy because he talks about the fact that they did a drive-by. They went and cased the place. They went and pulled up on it. They went and took a look at it. And he is the guy, because I don't know if she goes that far, and we're going to listen to it in here, but on Friday, she said that was the guy. She identified him on the news, meaning he doesn't go drive by, walk up there. They're not walking up to go take a look at the treehouse because they're expecting Travis to be in the car. They do that for one reason, because Travis is the plus one. Travis is the guy he's bringing to make sure he can handle everything. He's the guy no one knows. And Rory's planning to put a mask on. Travis is a guy no one knows. They're going to come in, storm the place in the dark clothes, and boom. And they went to go see the joint. Tyrone didn't come. Tyrone wasn't the one checking it out. This is significant. Let's continue listening.
No, sir.
Okay. Can you describe that man as a smaller man?
Yes.
Was he, I mean, how
Well, it's kind of hard to say. He was standing one step down behind Rory, but he's not as big as Detroit. Reddish hair.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of, I don't know, they had a red shirt. Kind of preppy looking in a sense.
Okay.
No facial hair.
I'm sorry?
No facial hair.
No facial. Now, he wasn't wearing a mask by any chance.
No, this is him.
This is earlier, right?
Yes.
So you got to see his face.
Yes.
Okay. Now, you didn't speak to him though, did you?
The other
You,
guy?
yeah, the other guy. You did not speak to him, so you didn't hear his voice
No, sir.
at that time. Correct?
I can't say that I've ever heard his voice.
Okay.
That other person
All right.
that was with Rory earlier.
Now, since that time, did you have the opportunity to see other things that helped you identify who these individuals might be?
The only person I ever identified was Rory.
Okay. For example, did you see,
Well,
go ahead.
no, I'm getting confused. I was going to say except Tyrone, but I'm not identifying Tyrone except for him not being there. So I think I was kind of threw you off.
All right. Let me-
Sorry.
listen. I asked you about identifying somebody, and you said that you thought the only person you identified was Rory. Correct?
Rory, yes.
Right, okay, Rory. All right, that's
Confused.
good.
Detroit.
But
as
then
Rory
you
was.
corrected yourself is in that you said that you did also identify the second person as not being Ty Tucker.
As not being Tyrone. Yes.
As Tyrone. You said that on a number of occasions,
Yes.
right? That you're absolutely, I'm sorry? I'm sorry?
I'm objecting to the fact that you're saying that you made that to a statement on a number of other occasions.
I got it.
All right. Have you ever made that statement on other occasions?
I believe so, yes.
Objection elements,
Because I-
improper bolstering,
In Papa what?
bolstering, credibility of the witness.
Have you ever said that statement before? Yes or no?
Did I believe it's not
Yeah,
Tyrone? Yes.
yeah, okay. Were you ever able to make any correlation between anything you saw, like pictures in the newspaper, or the photo from CBS, or videos that you saw on YouTube with regard to the other man that was in the
Objection compound, question.
Go ahead, you can answer. Did any of those things have any effect on your ability to identify the person who was in the group that was not?
Can I answer the question first?
Yeah.
If you say object, I can still answer.
You answer the questions, yes.
Okay.
Right.
I'm sorry. Could you repeat that?
Okay. I'm now talking about the second man that was in the bar that you said definitely was not Ty.
Yes.
Right. That man, did you ever, since all this happened and as time has progressed, did you ever see other things, either in the newspaper or YouTube or videos or whatever, anything that, hold on, let me finish, that caused you to rethink identifying who that second man was?
I saw a picture on a video called Corruption 2.
You saw what?
Objection, and I am not evidence.
She's telling me that's something that she saw. It's not evidence. It need to be evidence. Answer the question. Go ahead.
Okay,
Tell us what you saw.
I saw a picture on this video. It's called Corruption 2.
Uh-huh.
There's a picture of a man out in front of the treehouse walking in a hoodie.
Okay, so
That looks like the man. Looks like the same hoodie from the man that I saw upstairs.
okay. Anything else that you saw that helped you identify that? Did you ever see an interview of Travis?
Yes.
Okay. Did that have any effect on your ability to identify the second? Okay.
No.
All right.
Because I never identified it.
When you heard the interview of Travis, right?
Briefly.
Briefly. Did that have any effect on your ability to identify the voice of the second man in the apartment that night?
What is that speculation?
No, I don't want you to
To
speculate.
me, it sounds like it could have been, but I don't know.
You don't know for
That's
sure.
it, yeah.
All right.
All right, so she just said she heard his voice, Travis's voice, and said it sounded like it could have been the voice she heard there. That I guess that spoke, and she also was referencing here, if you could kind of get through all the objections and all the things there, that she said that she thought Travis resembled the man that was standing there. Now she was more emphatic on Friday, but the bottom line is she's saying it here. She said it Friday. The jury's going to get to hear that if they hear this deposition. And this is important because when you look back and you've got to tie in all of the pieces, you go back and you say, what did Travis say? Travis said he was part of it. It makes no sense that he's part of the crew that rides around, but doesn't go in. And since she says it clearly wasn't Ty Tucker who comes up with him, we're not going to think Ty's sitting in the car. Okay, I'm going to go do a ride around and he's sitting in the car. It's because Rory and Travis were the ones doing this. Travis is along for him. They're checking it out because it's expected that Travis is the one that's coming up because they wanted to understand the layout of the area for when they come back and try to commit this robbery. It's very clear, and it should have been very clear to the police. But the problem is they went down a road with making some assumptions and then did what happens in a lot of situations. The police don't want to admit they're wrong. So instead of admitting they're wrong, instead of just saying, hey, oops, we went down the wrong road, they don't, again, look, police officers are subject to everything that anyone else would be at work. You don't want to look like you're wrong. You don't want to look like you're incompetent. There's going to be consequences. People are going to look down upon you. People are going to go. And remember, this detective, right? You have to understand the frame of mind of this detective, Malone, who's the one who was the genesis of this entire thing. We're going to talk about that in a little bit. But this detective already was in hot water. She already was having issues keeping her reports together, following up on cases. She knew this. She already was getting heat. She didn't need another one. So for her, closing this case was going to help her. It was going to make sure no more scrutiny was going to come down on her upon her job, just like ended up happening in the end anyways, where it came out that she was derelict to her duties. She was deficient in her investigative skills. She wasn't doing her job properly. Now, you don't hear it in all the tapes, but you know darn sure you can almost hear in some, and there's some tapes that are on Mr. Tucker's YouTube channel, and it's of the interrogation room, and you can hear background conversation. I'm going to play a little bit, maybe not tonight, but I will be playing them in another presentation. But it's significant in the standpoint when you hear how she's talking, you can tell she's unhappy with some of her superiors, so to speak, with things and how they're going. And to me, that's the mind frame of somebody who says, I can't afford to make a mistake. If I make a mistake, it's just going to be another person, another individual, another thing that someone's going to come at me and say, you're incompetent. And she couldn't take that. So she plowed forward. The problem is when you're in law enforcement or you're in medical field, whatever, these have real consequences on people's lives. So it's not like, hey, you make a mistake and maybe there's a small financial loss. This is a loss of someone's life, liberty, and freedom. And that individual that's had to bear this, has bared this for 6 years, has been Tyrone Tucker. And now he's in a courtroom defending himself, hoping that a jury of 12 will see this case for what it is. And hoping the rest of the world will too. That's why we've got to be watching. That's why we've got to keep our eyes on this courtroom and make sure that it's not forgotten at what's happened here, that the pressure is on, and that if he is able to be acquitted, that accountability happens and occurs, that it doesn't just stop with the trial and it continues on through to make sure something like this doesn't happen ever again in Key West and in other areas, and it becomes a lesson. Because what happened in this case can happen to anyone. And that is the takeaway. That should be the takeaway for everyone, for every individual that's watching this right now and watching how this unfolded and watching how this man got ensnared in when they have the two guilty parties, the two individuals. They could have cut that same deal with Johnson, but it's because this detective, he ran into the wrong detective. He ran into an incompetent police officer who just didn't want to say she was wrong, and she ran with it. We're going to talk about it. We're jumping a little ahead, but we're going to talk about it. Give me just a moment here. Let's finish Paula's testimony.
All right, now, did you know Tyrone? Is that how you call him, Tyrone? How do you refer to him?
Pretty much, hey, you.
Okay.
I was given his name one time, but then I didn't see him enough after
Okay,
that.
well, I'm going to call him Ty Tucker. Is that okay? Okay, so now we know who we're talking about. Yeah. Prior to.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay. Prior to November 17th, the day of the robbery, had you met Ty Tucker?
Yes.
Do you remember about how many times you met him, where you met him?
Probably about 5 or 6. I met him originally at Burger King.
Burger King, okay, and about how many times have you been in his presence prior to that date?
Prior to meeting him at Burger King,
No, prior to the day of the robbery.
I saw him once on the street, just like a hello. I think I saw him again at Burger King. He had been into treehouse one time.
Okay, so you saw him
Downstairs.
4 or 5 times, is that fair?
Yes.
And you talked to him, you
Yes.
heard his voice?
Yes.
Okay. Was the voice that you heard that said, "I think we killed him," was that Ty Tucker's voice? How sure?
I'm gonna say 100% sure. 100% sure.
You're 100%
Tyrone
sure?
has a different voice.
It was a different voice.
Yeah, he's got a rough voice too, like a gravelly,
All right.
a smoker's murder voice.
Okay. Now, what about the body type? You said you've seen Ty on a number of occasions. What about what you've been able to learn about the man who was the second person in the robbery and his body shape, his size, his demeanor compared to Ty's?
Tyrone seemed bigger than the person that I saw.
I'm sorry?
Tyrone seems bigger than the person that I saw.
So is it fair?
Not as big as Rory.
I'm sorry?
Not as big as Rory.
Okay. Is it fair to say that the person who was the second man in the robbery did not have the same body size, style, and shape as Ty Tucker?
Correct.
Following the robbery, did there come a time when you saw Ty Tucker shortly after the robbery?
Yes.
When was that?
I believe it was 3 or 4 days later.
It was when?
I believe it was 3 or 4 days later.
3 or 4 days later?
I'm not exactly sure.
Okay, but it was shortly thereafter.
Yes, yes.
And that
It
was,
was, Detroit had been arrested, but Tyrone hadn't.
it was what?
Detroit had been arrested, but
Okay.
Tyrone hadn't.
Okay, all right. And that was at the McDonald's?
Yeah, we learned McDonald's.
How did that happen? Did you accidentally meet him there?
Accidentally, yeah.
Okay, so he was.
Now, this is the alleged witness intimidation charge, which, by the way, is punishable by up to life in prison since it relates to a murder. This is what you're about to hear her talk about is what allegedly occurs for witness intimidation, where he accidentally runs into her, doesn't realize that he's even a murder suspect at this point. He doesn't think he thinks he's a witness. He'd been released from police custody. He wasn't charged with anything, and he runs into her and is trying to comfort her because they're good for it, because they've known each other. And she goes up and talks to him. You think if he thought she was involved in getting her neck cut, that she would be talking to him? That's absolutely asinine. Let's listen.
There,
He was sitting in the back and I walked in and,
he was by himself.
yes,
Okay. And you walk in and did you approach him or did he approach you?
neither one of us approached each other really. He just kind of was looking for a table. He kind of said, hey, how are you?
You said that?
Yeah.
Mhm. And did you sit with him at the table?
No, we went outside. 'Cause
Oh, you went-
I was crying.
You were crying? Because you were still, okay.
Well, because he had said that he had been dragged.
I'm sorry?
Objection, hearsay.
Go ahead, sir.
Go ahead.
You can answer it.
He said that he had been down at the police station all night
Uh-huh.
because of worry.
Okay.
I was like, what? Because I had no idea if they all stayed in the same place or
Mhm.
whatever that deal was.
Mhm.
And,
You were surprised to hear that?
oh yeah,
Okay. So how long were you with him at the time?
maybe 15, 20 minutes.
15 or 20 minutes? And you were upset?
Oh yeah.
And you were crying?
Oh, I probably got his shoulder full of snot. I was crying so hard.
You cried on his shoulder?
Yes, yes, I was.
So this was shortly after the robbery, while the incident was fresh. Your
Yes.
observations were fresh and what you heard was fresh. At that time when you saw Ty, did you ever suspect or think for a minute that he was the second guy? And as time has progressed, have you become more or less sure that it wasn't Ty?
I'm, for a little bit, I don't know if I'm allowed to say this, for a little bit, that picture had me thinking that it was him, but I've always questioned that picture because I never believed it was Tyler.
Okay, well, is it fair to say that you had conversations with the police, with Matt Pitcher?
Yes.
Okay.
Plenty.
And Matt Pitcher told you that Ty was involved?
Objection, hearsay.
You can answer.
Every time I look at that picture, I question Tyler was involved in that picture.
And when he told you Ty was involved, did you say to him, are you sure that?
Yes,
it's Ty?
yes, plenty of times.
Plenty of times you said
Are
that.
you sure? You're absolutely sure, because I just don't understand it, I don't see it.
And you said that because you didn't think he was involved.
Exactly.
But he had been arrested anyway, is that correct?
Yes.
And,
Well, not the first time I spoke with that picture.
right, okay.
Wait, no, I'm correct then. No, because at that point, I didn't know that was Tyrone. So yes, he would have had to have been arrested.
Right, and you had this conversation with Detective Fisher on a number of occasions? How many, about?
Only at least anywhere between 5 and 10.
Anywhere between 5 and 10 times. You told him that you thought that they were wrong, concluding that Mr. Tucker was involved.
Yes. And are you sure? And stuff like that.
And what was the response? What was Detective's? Go ahead, you can answer. What was
Outside scope correct.
I'm sorry?
Outside scope correct.
I just asked a number of questions in that area, and now you're objecting. You didn't object to the first 4 questions in this area.
I
Now you're
object to
objecting.
relevance. I'm objecting now, yes.
So did I answer?
Okay.
All right, so we're gonna end that there, but the significant fact you want to take into account here, okay, without a doubt, the most significant takeaway you should be taking away with that testimony is that she's testifying it was not Tyrone Tucker, 100% was not Tyrone Tucker who was at who was involved. She says Pitcher. Now Pitcher, understand who that is. You did not hear from him in the trial so far because he's not being called. He might get called by Tyrone. I don't know that that's really necessary at this point, but he is the detective on the case who actually got reassigned to, I believe, the drug division because of his actions and behaviors in his case. But she was saying the only one that ever made her think he was involved was Pitcher, and she kept telling Pitcher, I don't, and there's a bunch of body cam footage, a bunch of recordings of her talking to Pitcher where she says, I just don't think it was Tyrone. And he says, no, you don't know. You don't know Tyrone. You don't know what we know. Doing the typical police thing. Like, we have something you haven't seen. We have something you don't know about. So it's true. But it wasn't true. And it isn't true. And that's the worst part about this whole thing. So bottom line is, what you should take away from that is he identifies, or she identifies, the fact that it was Tyrone Tucker, all right, or not Tyrone Tucker, that it was Travis who was there prior to this thing going down. And that is significant. That is extremely, extremely significant. But that is very, very significant, extremely significant, because of the fact that Travis Johnson puts himself as part of the ride along. And again, she says there was a white guy and it was him, or at least it resembled him. That's who she thinks it was. It makes sense. There's no other white guy that's been identified around this case other than potentially Tyrone. She says it wasn't Tyrone. She even specifically says no facial hair. And if he's casing the joint, if he's walking up in there, that tells you that that's the individual Rory expected to come along with him. He didn't bring Tyrone up there. In fact, maybe if he would have brought Tyrone up there, it might have disarmed him a little bit, since allegedly he knew her. But he absolutely didn't bring Tyrone up there. She says emphatically it wasn't. And then she says the individual he did bring up there, the body type of that second individual appeared to resemble, which is why she felt it was the same two individuals from earlier, which she's been consistent on since her initial statements. And that is extremely, extremely, extremely relevant. And that's what this jury hopefully picked up on Friday, and they're going to hopefully pick up on it again when this deposition happens. You take that with the fact that Johnson can't be trusted. You take that with the fact that there's no one else placing Tyrone at the scene. You take that with the fact that the DNA evidence is inconclusive and there's not 1 ounce of DNA evidence linking Tyrone at the scene. And the state can go on and on and on about inconclusive, but the bottom line is if you're following the presumption of innocence, when something is inconclusive, when there are two potential interpretations of evidence, you must presume innocence. It's the tiebreaker. And in this case, that means the DNA evidence is irrelevant and proves nothing. Tyrone Tucker, there's no evidence against this man. He shouldn't be on trial. In fact, it's almost at the level of a directed verdict. And potentially, if this would be a fair judge in a fair courtroom, under fair circumstances, the case probably would have never moved to trial. But in addition, it probably would have never gotten out of the directed verdict phase, because what is there? What is there here? There's nothing. Anyways, we're going to get into the final piece here. There's two final pieces we're going to go over. We're going to go into Travis Johnson. I want to show a clip of Travis Johnson's testimony. All right, give me a moment here. Now I want to give you some background on what we're going to watch here. This is a statement. I want you to listen. The part where you want to listen to is about the first few minutes of this interview, because what you're going to be hearing is you're going to be hearing Phelps. You're going to hear exactly how Travis Johnson was fed the story to include Tyrone Tucker. How this detective, okay, after being told, and again, this has to make your blood boil, right? I want you to understand, and again, I haven't played them, but it's played in another area. Every individual in this case was saying one name, not Tyrone Tucker, not Travis, Detroit. Detroit did this. Paula, the victim, is saying, Detroit cut my neck. And this detective is sitting there calling that man a good man. Where did she get that from? When you go back and you watch the body camera, you watch everything I present, you go on there and you watch every police material. This detective, when you hear her speak, what is she doing? Where is she coming from? But what's happened here is, or this is Captain, actually. I guess it's Captain Phelps, I believe is who this was. But her Detective Malone is the one that got her on board, believing by showing a video, by showing you this picture, and I'll show you this picture right now. Hold on one second. We'll jump to this picture right here. Let me share this screen here. This picture, share. All right. Hopefully it comes through. Oops. All right. So I'm going to have to move myself over. This picture right here. This is the whole reason why Tyrone Tucker found his way into this case. And let me explain this to you. I explained this in another one, but essentially, well, the first rung is he went to go pay a phone bill. Okay. Scary thought here, right? Man goes to pay his phone bill with a friend whom he doesn't know this friend was involved in whatever. Maybe he did know he was involved, but Tyrone's the type of guy that says, I'm not getting involved in other people's business. Anyways, he goes to pay his phone bill. And the individual with whom he's there with, as he's standing there paying his phone bill, and he said he rode along simply because Rory was going there anyways, and he needed to pay his bill, so he took a ride. And that's just the nature of things that are going on down there, when you're living in that environment. And he rides down. And as a result, a confidential informant sees Rory Detroit, Wilson. Says, hey, Detroit was down there. He was down there at it's a Metro PCS, T-Mobile Metro PCS. So the detectives go down there and pull the camera. And what do they find? They find that he's with a white guy. Now, and on top of that white guy paid his bill. So you know what? The detectives think jackpot. Unfortunately, it's the wrong detective looking at this because, see, detectives are supposed to do investigations, but they're investigating when this is it. This is what they investigated. Detective Malone identifies it's Tyrone. Identifies that Tyrone is the guy. They even mention in the surreptitiously recorded video that, hey, Tyrone's got this goatee. They think that's really identifiable. I mean, hopefully O'Quinn is going to absolutely, and all these witnesses will definitely identify him because he's got this goatee. That's going to be great. We just got to get him on record, which they never, ever identify, and they say the opposite. But regardless, Detective Malone goes to where any great police detective would go, to Facebook, and pulls up Ty Tucker's Facebook page. And what does she see on there? This image with a knife and a scary hood. And you know what? The problem is he was at something called Fantasy Fest. Fantasy Fest is where you go dress up. I think it's like where you're there. It's like skulls and goblins and everything else. But you dress up like the Grim Reaper and the people that are out there. And it's a fake knife too, of course. But you dress up. And he posted that. Because as he said, he'd been to Fantasy Fest, and he'd been on one big party since Fantasy Fest, running right on into where he landed himself over there at that warehouse. He'd been partying it up, working a little bit, but partying it up. Went down to that warehouse as a favor to a friend. And then Detective Malone sees this and says, we got our guy. That's him. That's got to be him. He looks like a killer. That looks like a scary-ass dude right there. And she decides that's him. She takes that to Phelps and says, we got our guy. Phelps then puts in motion to go bring this guy in, to go after him. The problem is when they start moving in that direction, they can't say they're wrong. They can't say, oops, we made a mistake. They bring him in and they decide, well, we got a problem on our hands because we're coming at this guy hard. And we believed, and Malone says, oh my God, she's the one who's the genesis of this whole thing. And she doesn't want to admit she's wrong. And Phelps doesn't want to admit she's wrong. And they think they got their guy. And they concoct the story to go after him once it all starts falling apart. And this is where it comes. And it's sad, it's horrible, it's disgusting. But this is where it goes. Right here, because they saw this, made an assumption, moved forward, and didn't want to admit they're wrong, and then said, that's okay. Hey, I don't have to admit I'm wrong. I don't have to face my coworkers. I don't have to let people know that I made a mistake. And again, because Detective Malone making lots of mistakes, lots of problems, verified by the IA, verified by her stepping down and deciding to transfer out of police work, knowing that obviously she had a whole lot of stuff going on, a whole lot of hot water was brewing around her. And she said, she could not bear to have another incident, another situation where she had to come and say, ooh, I was incompetent. And they go, well, how the hell did you come up with this guy's name? Oh, I went on his Facebook page. Detective, and you call this guy down. We bring him down. We go in and we question him. Nah, you know what? We got a solution. Ty Tucker's just a homeless guy down here. No one's going to pay attention. No one's going to care. And we don't have to admit we're wrong. And he's probably a criminal anyways. You hear him in there where they attempt to tell people that he's got criminal records. They make up stuff. They make up the fact that he allegedly threatens Rory Wilson's girlfriend, which never happened, never occurred, never ever happened, and there's no evidence of at all. That's something that was made up, that was somewhat of a technique that they would use, but they say this happened to try to move other witnesses to say things negatively against him. It's a tactic police use all the time. The problem is they're using this and they have nothing else. They have nothing linking this man to this crime. Nothing. The only person that's constantly coming up is Detroit. Detroit links in John Travis Johnson because of the fact John Travis Johnson's truck is seen at the scene. And John Travis Johnson is seen walking in the videos with Rory. But the one guy that no one can find, none of the cameras find, never steps in front of the camera. No one knows where he is, although there's one guy that knows where he is. And he's not that credible of a witness because I think he was in a bender of his own. But he would say that he recalls, although he can't recall it with certainty, 100% certainty because of the fact he was high, that Tyrone Tucker had a few too many fireballs, playing dominoes, and was taking a nap up in the warehouse, like you would expect, like you heard O'Quinn say. Hey, he'd be there to say, dudes, don't do that. I don't think it's the right thing. But he's not going to get in the way. He's going to say, I'm going to tell you, I'm going to counsel you, I'm going to give you the thoughts. But you're living your life and I'm living mine. And he ain't the type of guy to intervene. He's not going to stop what you're doing. And he's going to go, okay. And then it goes south. And then it's like, oh my God, this whole thing blows up. And then he ends up the one arrested for this stuff. And he ends up getting brought in on this when he had nothing to do with it. He had a few too many fireballs and took a nap. But it's this picture right here. This picture right here is what caused this entire case. And now you've seen 6 years and you've seen the cesspool of corruption rise up around trying to protect a bad decision, a bad moment, regardless of the consequences, because police and prosecutors don't believe they can ever say, we got it wrong. We got it wrong. And they don't want to say that in this case. Anyways, let me get back to the video here that I was going to play for you. And then we're going to call it. And I appreciate you guys if you're sticking around and have watched this far. I appreciate you watching because this is important stuff, important things to be aware of as you're analyzing this week. And maybe the case goes to the jury this week, and it'll be ever more important that you be aware of these things when looking at this and looking at the context of the evidence. Unfortunately, the jury won't be aware of it, but perhaps they will at some point. But
case going on, with the cause number, the eviction, and I told him I'd do whatever I could to help out with that. So I don't know why I would have any problem with him at all. At all.
My feeling was there was some really bad blood between you and Roy.
No.
Some very bad blood.
None, dude. None.
And what he's talking about is
I'm trying to figure out what could you have done? I mean,
now what we just interrupted or picked up in is there's a whole other tape, another hour and a half of tape. But basically, in the previous tape, at the end of that tape, they're using the police tactic where they lie to the individual. It's something commonly done. Unfortunately, police can do it, and the Supreme Court says it's okay that they can lie. You're not allowed to lie to them, but they can lie to you, and it's a perfectly accepted police practice. Hold on one second here. I think I took myself. Sorry. But it's a perfectly accepted police practice. They're allowed to lie. And that's what they're doing here. They're saying that, or they were insinuating them. We heard you had problems with Rory, and now they're throwing out some stuff. And he's like, what? Rory and I are fine. We're homies. We're buddies. What are you talking about, man? We're road dogs. What do you mean? I mean, hell, they just did a robbery together. So he's thinking to himself, what? What's happening here? He's confused because that's not, and that's what you're seeing. And then you're going to see Phelps jump in here, and she's going to take it over, and she's going to take that, and you're going to see the beginnings of how this whole thing transpires to where he turns on Tyrone. That's
No,
listening to, you know,
I haven't done anything to anybody, man. Like you can find anybody that knows me whatsoever. I'm not violent. I'm not aggressive. I don't start fights. You know what I mean? I don't. I don't. I've seen enough violence to last a lifetime, man.
All right.
You know.
Now, the funny thing is, he was charged with, I believe it was in Texas, he was charged with a felonious assault, or at least investigated for it. So he's had violence, and yet the detectives are aware of this. Of course, you know, it's just a method of questioning they're not confronting anything with, but they know this guy's full of it. Okay. And I'm not saying he's a bad guy overall, but I'm saying for him to say he's not violent, he doesn't have anything to do, he's lying to them out his teeth. Let's continue.
And for him to say that he's mad at me, that
Man, no, my feeling, listening to him, of the details of his side of the story, the reason we're here.
Right.
My feeling was, damn, this guy must have really crossed him to be coming in here talking like this with us.
That doesn't make me feel well, because I don't have any enemies.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I don't.
Don't sound like it, man. I mean,
No.
listening to you don't sound like it.
No, dude, I've lived a good, decent life, you know.
You spend a lot of time trying to get.
I have my vices. I have, the things that I like to do, but I don't hurt nobody.
You know, the big difference of when he gives us a time or something, we've been able to verify it. You know?
I don't know. I mean, but I don't know how to remember times like that, man. I just don't.
Yeah.
I wish I did.
Hey,
Cat
over to that chair.
I mean, I really do wish I could remember times better.
Yeah.
You know? Now, normally I have to write everything down so I can remember this shit. You know?
Travis, I'm going to take a big deep breath, because I'm going to try to keep my temper in check right now, because right now I'm really, really upset, and it's not at you, okay?
Yes, ma'am.
And you and I have had some good conversations over the last couple of days, and I'm going to tell you what has just happened and why I'm so upset. We are picking up April right now, and we're taking her to a safe house.
Okay.
And the reason we have to do this is because Ty threatened to kill her and the baby. Yeah. Yes. So two of the decent people in this story,
are no
April
longer
and her baby, who have nothing to do with any of this, have now been told, you better stop talking, you better start.
All right, so I want you to pick up on his initial reaction, because this is important, right? Because Detective Phelps goes a totally different direction. You're going to hear two of the decent people in this story, and he says, are no longer decent. Who's he talking about? Ty Tucker's one of them, right? Oh my God, no longer decent. Ty's one of the two people that are no longer decent. Two decent people are no longer decent. He says, are no longer decent, because we just heard that Ty Tucker threatened him. He knows Ty Tucker had nothing to do with this. In his mind, Ty Tucker is a decent guy who had nothing to do with it, and he just let that slip right here in the interview. He just told you in the interview right in that moment. It's these little moments you got to pay attention to.
Running, because if anything more is said to the police, I am going to take care of you and your baby. And I've got a 27-year-old first-time mother who is scared to death that she's going to get killed merely for telling the truth.
What the fuck, man? And I told her to call me this morning if she needed anything, and gave her my phone number, and as if I needed, because I came back to the house this afternoon. I called you guys, told you, and got my stuff and got out of there. And I told April,
she told us
if she needed anything at all, to give me a call, and I would come back and help her.
Travis, the really sad part of the story is this. We've had the opportunity to talk to a lot of people that are involved, and most of the people in the story are good, decent people. And you're one of the good, decent people in this story, Travis. You really are. You're a guy who's bounced back from hard luck and is really taken your life and moved it forward in a positive. You did everything you could with the bad situation after the hurricane. You get victimized. You lose your tools, you lose your cooking utensils, they scratch your truck, and you still stay positive. You're not the one out there saying, I'm going to beat you, I'm going to kill you. What you're doing is you're doing the right thing, talking to the police, trying to get this set straight. You're one of the good guys in this story. Rory's one of the good guys in this story. Detroit is doing right by April. He doesn't have a lot of money, but he was working. He got her at least a somewhat decent place to stay. The conversation you and I had last night, it's not the Taj Mahal that you were living in, but it was a roof, and it was a place, and it was safe.
I'm trying to make it as safe as possible, you know.
Yep, and Travis, you've been doing right by everybody. And Rory was doing right by April. He knows she's scared. He knows that it's her first baby. He's proud to be with her, and he's proud to be having a son. He's waiting for that baby to come into this world. So there's good people in the story. You're a good person in the story. April is a good person in the story. Rory, Detroit is a good person.
You just heard that. I mean, this is insane. This is a detective who's aware that every person in this entire case, the only person you hear all over police body cam, all over everyone, the person they were searching for, the way they found Tyrone Tucker, the person they were manhunting all over the island, it's Detroit. And he's a good person. He's a good person. He's the one that cut the neck, cuts Paula's neck. That's a good person, according to this captain. This is insane. And yet there's no evidence. There is zero evidence. There's nothing. We've seen it. If there was evidence, there's nothing against Tyrone Tucker but a Facebook photo. And she's sitting here saying this to him, going after him. Why? And there's nothing. If there was something, we'd have seen it. We've seen the state's case. We've seen the best they have to offer. It's him. It's him after she introduces the fabrication, which she's doing right now. That's what they have, him. After she says this to him, she's going to say this. He's never told the story that he told in court until you hear this right now, until you hear him believing that Tyrone Tucker has threatened a woman and her baby, which never happened. There's no evidence of. You've not heard it in this case. There's no evidence that that occurred. Zero. And yet that's what she's telling him. And she's telling him he's a bad guy. He's a horrible person. So that's what's in his mind, thinking, oh my God. Well, again, the whole adage, the whole idea here is we made a mistake. We're figuring because of where he's living, the circumstances he's in life, he's homeless, he's around people that are using drugs, he's probably using some drugs himself, he's partying. Society won't care about losing Ty Tucker, but I care about losing my job. I care about looking incompetent, and I would rather sacrifice and take Ty Tucker's life, liberty, freedom, and happiness. Instead of just saying we made a mistake. We looked at a Facebook photo and it didn't make sense, and saying, hey, look, we're going after him. Because what they're doing right now is they're like, we have you guys, right? We have you. We know you were there. We know Rory was there, and you have a choice. You either take the fall, and then unbeknownst to them, that's going to fall back and blow back on Malone and Phelps and everybody that embraced this whole Ty Tucker idea. Or you save our ass so we don't have to look stupid and we don't have to look bad in front of our superiors because you don't know the interactions and the things that are going on bureaucratically. Because if you think that Detective Malone was in good standing and she gets an IA investigation and all these things are going in, that there wasn't questions, there wasn't people that were upset, there wasn't things going on. We don't know for certain, but you got to anticipate. We understand the way the workforce works. We understand when somebody has a problem like that, there's 100 problems beforehand that most people are rationalizing, overlooking. We know there's heat being turned up. And we know that individual, if you're unwilling to investigate your cases, you're unwilling to do things, you're taking shortcuts. That's what this is all about. But then what people fail to understand is when you're a detective, when you're a police officer, and you take a shortcut, that shortcut impacts a human being. And in this case, that human being has a name, a face, and he's standing in that courtroom right now down in Florida fighting for his life because these people wouldn't say they made a mistake. It was more important for them to say, we will make a deal with these guys. We will let this individual out who went, planned, was involved in everything, on video, on tape, all the evidence exists. You've got Detroit, known as Rory. He's there. He's named. He's named by Paula. His DNA is at the scene. You've got all of this evidence is pointing towards these two guys. There's nothing pointing to Tyrone. And this is what the police come out and do. Let's keep listening.
In the story. The asshole in the story? You and I both know who the asshole in the story is.
Is it Ty?
No, we both know. Don't ask the question. You and I both know who the bad guy in the story is. You to come into this world. So there's good people in the story. You're a good person in the story.
All right, now I want you to, I'm going to play this for you, okay? I'm going to play it again because I want you to just take into account everything I've just said. I want you to understand there's no evidence at all. There's an asshole in this story, and it is not Tyrone Tucker. There's an asshole sitting there. It's that person behind that camera asking these questions. It's her cohort, Detective Malone. It's Detective Pitcher who's jumped in here and has proceeded with the bad evidence and bad intel and bad look and has proceeded to try to follow the code that police officers will follow, which is we don't let anybody, we protect each other. And that's what they're doing right now because because they don't want to admit that there was a mistake. They don't want to admit that this mistake occurred. Here we go. Let's listen to this. I want you to hear it again. You've just heard a little snippet of it, but I mean, you're not going to believe it when you hear this, but listen to it.
April is a good person in the story. Rory, Detroit is a good person in the story. The asshole in the story? You and I both know who the asshole in the story is.
Is it Ty?
Is it Ty?
No, we both know. Don't ask the question.
Is it Ty? He has to ask.
You both know
Look,
who the bad guy
look
in
how
the
she
story
is.
You know.
You know.
Only making it worse, Travis.
And he doesn't know.
How
Look.
the hell do you go to a 27-year-old,
Does that look like he knows?
9-month pregnant woman and tell her to her face?
So that's what makes him the asshole, right? She's alleging that Ty was the one that did the murder of Matthew Bonnett and allegedly was involved in cutting Paula's neck. And what makes him the asshole is this allegation that he says that he told, is the allegation that he tells, or allegedly made a threat to Detroit's girlfriend, a threat that never even happened. So you got to wonder, why is she trying to make him view her as an asshole? So you got to wonder, why is she making him or wanting to paint him as an asshole? Why is she wanting to tell him these things? Because what she's trying to get him to do is she's trying to get him over the line. She wants him to flip on Ty. She wants him to lie on Ty, and she wants him to believe Ty's a bad guy. And he's sitting there going, wow, I didn't think he was that. I didn't think he was a bad guy. In fact, he just said he was a good guy. Well, kind of in so many words. Let's watch the rest.
I'm going to hurt you and your baby. I'm going to take care of you and your baby if you don't stop running your mouth. What's April trying to do? Find out what's going on with Detroit. She's home alone.
Yeah.
Scared to death.
Yeah.
Asks a simple question. You know what she said to you.
Yeah.
How come Rory's stuff is on the internet and Ty isn't? And you were honest with her and said, Rory's in jail and Ty's not. And her statement to you was, how does that happen?
That's what I told her. I said, I don't know what the fuck to think about all of this.
Mm-hmm. Travis, I think what happened is, let's talk about the people living at the treehouse. Let's talk about the good people in the story and the not so good people in the story. Not so good people living at the treehouse. Addicted to crack, selling their body for crack, people coming and going worse than the place that you're living in because there's no one in that treehouse that's trying to take care of the property. Matt's too old.
What is the treehouse?
The place across from CVS.
Okay, I've heard
Okay.
about the crack den.
Yep, the crack den.
Okay.
You know where it is.
Yeah.
And you know the kind of people that are hanging out the crack den.
No, I don't. I've never been in there.
Yep, and I believe that.
Never been over there. Like, I don't.
Yep.
Yeah.
So I think here's what happened. They get a little bit of money. And a little bit of money on Stock Island is 100. A lot of money on Stock Island is 1,000. And there's word on the street that $1,000 has changed hands. So Paula at the treehouse got $1,000. And I think there's a discussion, there's a plan. Let's go and get the $1,000. They're crackheads. We'll go in, we'll make it quick, we'll come out, no one will know us, we'll make sure that we got masks, we'll make sure nobody knows it's us. They don't need the $1,000 to smoke up crack, we need the $1,000 to live. We'll do right with the money, we'll do right by all of us in the place on 2nd Street, and let's make this fast and easy. And I know you were part of the plan. Now I also know, hear me carefully, Travis, I also know that that plan never included hurting anyone at all. Because had there been discussion, any talks about hurting someone, you never would have participated. Because you're not that guy. You're not that guy that's going to sit down at a table with people and say, yeah, let's go beat somebody up. Let's go rape somebody. Let's go rob somebody. Let's go kill somebody. That's not you. You're a guy who's trying to survive. That's you, Travis. Now, could I hear you? Could I see you saying, let's go get some money to make life a little bit easier for us? Yep. Because that's the kind of guy you are. You're struggling. I get it. You lost all your tools. You lost all your cooking supplies. The place that you're living is mold infested. Your mattress got wet. It's hard. And you're struggling. And there's this, let's go get a little bit of money to make life a little bit easier. And you didn't go into the treehouse. You didn't. But you drove them there. You drove them there, Travis. We got your truck on video. There's a camera right where you parked it. When you pulled off Laurel Avenue and parked your truck in Detroit.
Now, what she just communicated to him is this, okay? And you see it in his eyes. I want you to look at his eyes. I want you to look how he's reacting to this. But what she just in so many words said to him is this. We have your truck on video. You've told us no one else has a key but you. You are that person driving that truck. So there's one or two things that happens. Either A, we saw two people get out of that truck. We know there were two people inside the treehouse. There's one of two ways this goes down. Either that was you or you got to say it was someone else. And we're telling you who you say it was. We're telling you we're interested in it being. And listen, I know you probably wouldn't be willing to say Tyrone Tucker was the guy if you just thought Tyrone Tucker was some innocent dude that you just were chilling with and hanging out with at the warehouse. But he's a bad guy. He threatened a pregnant woman. He threatened to kill a pregnant woman and her baby. So what do you care? Is a guy like that worth saving? Or you save yourself? We'll give you the sweetest deal of them all. You finger him, you finger Rory, and you get to walk out of this, and we're sending them away, and we still save our ass. Because that's what this was all about. Saving themselves from having to admit they got it wrong. And that's what she just communicated here. Let's keep watching.
Ty got out of that truck. All three of you are on a camera video. Now you did the right thing because you dropped him off and then you got the hell out of there. You're gone. You don't know what they did in the treehouse. You don't know about it until after. The plan wasn't to go up in there and hurt anybody. The plan wasn't to go up there and kill anybody. The plan was go up there, get the money, get your ass back.
And as we watched that video that she claims. We watched it, and we did not see a truck leave. We did not see it. We saw a truck arrive. We saw two people get out. In fact, it looked like one of them came from the driver's side. We have witnesses who said that they saw a dark colored truck still sitting in that same area vicinity. That was Gabby, unrelated, and said she saw the black guy, the second guy, the one that came after, that came out after Todd O'Quinn came up and asked her to call 911. She saw that guy get in the passenger side, and then it drove off. Paula says she heard someone get in a car and leave, although I don't think that came up in that testimony, but she clearly says she saw this man right here, a person resembling him, come in 30 minutes before. He admits that that's what he did, that they cased the place 30 minutes before, and then he returns, allegedly with Ty Tucker, who is nowhere, anywhere to be found. Not one trace of Ty Tucker is there. Not DNA, not camera. Nowhere does he pop up. But he does. He does. But he does. He pops up there. This man does. So does Detroit. But why is she after him? I'm telling you why she's after him. There's one reason why she's after him. They don't want to admit that they're wrong. They don't want to admit that they made a mistake. They're protecting each other. They're doing what they've always done. And to them, you saw her viewpoint of those people. They're the worthless. Are they going to lose their job over some crackhead, over some homeless guy who they accused of something? Is somebody going to get in trouble because we made a mistake? Nah, not a guy like that. To hell with him. He probably did something anyways. That's the way they think. That's how they think about those people. The people in the treehouse, the people in that warehouse. They don't view them as being worth anything. And that's the problem. That's why we're at. What they didn't understand was that Tyrone Tucker wasn't going to lay down. Was that Tyrone Tucker was going to have people backing him and coming to his aid and helping him, and they were going to get caught this time. They messed with the wrong guy, and they didn't see the whole picture, and they went forward, and this thing has spiraled completely out of control. And all we can hope is they certainly don't get their way with what they're trying to do with this jury, and that this jury sees through it. And I think they will, if this jury looks at things correctly. And how they could come to a conviction with what we've seen presented, I get, stranger things have happened, obviously, but they shouldn't. And when you see things like this should outrage anyone who comes within 5 feet of this case to see stuff like this, to see this happening, because this is something that could happen to anybody. Anyone could have this happen to them, especially if you're hard on your luck, if you're someone that the police view as a lesser member of our society, even though no one should be viewed that way. And the Constitution doesn't view anybody as lesser. Everyone is equal, and everyone should be investigated correctly. Everyone should be afforded all their rights, just like any other member of society. And that's not what's happened here. But let's finish up. We're going to finish up this a few more minutes here, and then we're going to call it. Give me one moment.
And then we'll split the money. That's the plan. And then everything went bad. And it wasn't Detroit that broke bad. You and I both know who broke bad. Who went off script, Travis? Who? The same guy that's threatening a 27-year-old 9-month pregnant woman. And that's not you. He broke bad. And he did the one thing no one talked about. There was never any plan to hurt anybody or kill anybody.
Now, I want you to note there, what does he do? When she says that, he shakes his head no. Now, he couldn't have known that. If he was the driver, he wouldn't have been able to know that. But that subconsciously tells you, he subconsciously reacted. When she said that, he's shaking his head no. It's not like, oh my God. It's like, no, that's not what happened. Because subconsciously he knows Tyrone Tucker couldn't have done this. He subconsciously reacted to her lie when she starts saying, but he's learning, he's taking it in, and he's realizing, I got to make a decision here. I got to decide. I've got an out. Because do I serve? Now it's like this. She's pretty much telling him, do you do life or does Ty do life? Who are we putting the life sentence on here, sir? Who gets to be the other guy? Sacrifice yourself for Ty. We never have a problem. We never have to admit we're wrong. We never have to say we made a mistake. None of that happens. And you, sir, get the deal of your lifetime. You get to participate in an unaliving and go home. Well, maybe not without serving a little bit of time, but ultimately you see the light of day. You see the light of day and your life isn't over with. Anyways, let's finish this out.
And now you've all been living with that for the last 5 days. Nobody slept. Everybody's had a difficult time going to work. You know the one guy who's walking around loving it? Bragging to everybody today. I set up Detroit. He's in jail. I'm a free man. He thinks this is funny, Travis. He's bragging. He's not filled with guilt. He's not filled with remorse. He's not having trouble sleeping. He's not mourning the life of another human being. An old man, you know what he told us last night? Man, I heard he got stabbed 7 times. He was bragging about it. There's 2 sides to the story, Travis. The side of all the good people.
That's not a what the fuck. Like, my God, how hideous. That's a what? He said this to you guys? Am I living in a different reality? Holy hell, what's going on with Ty? Has he lost his mind? And he's sitting there going, what the hell? Oh my God. But he's sitting in this police interrogation room. He's sitting there thinking to himself, well, if he's saying and doing all this stuff, if he's there, could he have been there and I didn't realize it? Was he there and I had no idea? I mean, I did leave and run out. Was there a third person there? Maybe he was the one that was doing the stabbing up the steps. Did he meet us there? He's thinking to himself, what the heck? I mean, what the hell? Where's all this coming from? Look, it didn't happen. He knows it didn't happen. He knows he was the other guy there, but he's trying to figure it out. He doesn't understand what the hell's going on, or why would he be saying? It turns out he said none of that. None of that was said by him. It was said what he heard, but it was not said in a braggadocious way. He wasn't bragging that Matthew Bonnett got stabbed 7 times. He was saying that's what he heard. He was talking to investigators. But see, police are allowed to lie to you. You're not allowed necessarily to lie to police. You got to swear in when you're down in Florida. But the police can lie to you. They can tell you fake things. They can tell you DNA. They can tell you failed a polygraph. They can do anything they want trying to get you to confess, even if it leads to a false confession, even if it leads someone else to falsely confess on you. And that's scary. And that's what you're seeing what happened. You're seeing this applied so totally wrong because there's the problem they have here is there's no other evidence. They really have nothing. And they're hoping, as they say in a surreptitiously recording, that the serological evidence, that the DNA is going to come back miraculously and link tied to this. And they're hoping that, this case is going to come together, but it doesn't. Nothing links into this. There's zero linking into this. And you've heard it. If you don't believe me, go back and watch the state's case. There's nothing. There's nothing but this man. And you see that this man did not tell this story originally. Of course, I didn't play the first hour and a half. We will play it together eventually. But I'm playing this clip for you because the takeaway from this is, how did this story begin? Where did the genesis of this story begin? It begins right here. It begins after Detective Malone shows her that photo. They concoct it together and they start fantasizing. And in fact, in the surreptitiously recorded, you can see where the makings of this. This is like 2 days before this, or a day and a half before this, that you hear them plotting out how it could have happened, what's going on, where they believe they got their guy simply because they judged a photo on Facebook. Scary stuff. It belies saying we got to train our investigators better. We got to demand that investigators are given a little, are in possession of analytical thinking, and are able to analyze things a little bit better than Facebook, and that they're willing, most importantly, willing to admit when they're wrong, or willing to admit when something doesn't lead to where you think it's going to go. And you can't have an investigator that's unwilling to do that, either because their ego doesn't allow them to do it, or because their situation at work doesn't allow them to do it, because they're making a lot of mistakes, because they're deficient, because they're under fire. And then you have this situation occur. And this is a total disaster right now, what you're seeing unfold on this screen.
They got jammed up in a bad thing. Those are good people who've made mistakes. The other side of the story is the bad person who did a bad thing and feels really, really good about doing the bad thing. That's not you. What I need you to talk to us about, Travis, is you got to give us your side of the story. You got to let us know, because I believe in my heart and soul, you're one of the good guys on the good side of the story. You're not over here. You've never, your whole life, been over there. You're not a violent guy. You've never demonstrated hurting anybody. You're a good person that got just all jammed up in a really bad thing. And the really sad thing is, Travis, you weren't even up in there.
I want you to look again. When she says, you're not a violent guy, right? He's going along. She's complimenting him. He's nodding his head yes. When she starts to say things that are untrue, he knows he's a violent guy. He knows he's been involved in violence. When she says, you're not a violent guy, you're a good person, immediately his head goes, But remember, you might look at that and say, oh, well, he's just saying, no, I'm not a violent guy. No, I'm not. But she's saying, no, he would be shaking his head. Yes, you're not a violent guy. Right. I'm not. Right. I'm not a violent guy. I'm not a violent guy. He's going, no, I'm not a violent guy. No, because he's disagreeing with her. He's subliminally disagreeing with her, knowing that she's lying, knowing that's a lie. And he's sitting here going, you see the look of horror on his face because he's sitting here thinking to himself, what the hell do I do in this situation? I've got a way out. But my God, what do I got to do? I got to sell my soul to do this. This is horrible. This has just been a situation. And again, I truly, genuinely do believe when he arrived there, they didn't go there to kill anybody. I think he thought, hey, he's going in. Rory's going to handle it. They're going up. He comes in, puts a knife up to the other gentleman that was there and puts it up, Ruget, and puts it up to his neck and says, be quiet. And, boom, it wasn't supposed to go off. And next thing you know, Paula is stabbed. Matt comes up. He gets stabbed to death. And suddenly they got a double murder and a half on their hand, or a murder and a half on their hands. And they're like, oh my God. And he's sitting there going, oh my God, the horror. What have I just done? Anyways, let's finish this out. Sorry for interrupting again.
You drove them? We got you on camera. You drove past the house at 8:45, real slow, so everybody could see where it was and where they were going to go when they came up out of there. And a little bit after 8 o'clock, you come back and you park your truck right in front of that camera at the gate. And they get out, Ty gets out, Detroit gets out, and then you do the smartest thing in your life. You don't get out of the truck. You get out of there. You get out of there. And then everything goes to shit. And now here you sit, good guy, stuck up in this bad stuff, trying to live past what the heck happened and trying to deal with it every day.
I'm scared to death.
I know you are. And we're here to make sure.
I just want to go home.
I get it. And we're here to make sure that you are not going to get hurt. April's scared to death too. She's on her way to a house right now, Travis. So when I tell you that you are going to be safe, I'm telling you, you are going to be safe. But in order to make that happen, I got to know what happened. I got to make sure, Travis, you're a good guy.
You just said it.
You tell me it. That's what I think happened.
We need all of it, Travis. You can't.
Don't.
Notice what he says. He doesn't want to say it because he can't say it. He knows it's not true. In fact, he's already said, I don't have a great memory. You're going to ask me to remember this stuff? And he's like, oh, the frustration. I don't have it written down. I need notes, man. I mean, you just said it. He's like, I want to go home. You just heard honesty there. You heard honesty there. I just want to go home. And if I just tell you what you said is right and I can go home, can I just go home? And now watch this reaction. Very, as this horrible situation becomes worse.
Leave anything out, Travis, from the start.
Okay. I'm scared to death, guys.
I get it.
I understand that.
Travis, if my captain tells you she's not going to let you get hurt, she's not going to let you get hurt.
So we were sitting there playing dominoes, and they're wanting to get high. They wanted some money, and somebody said something to I don't know, it was a Burger King guy. Said something about there's a lot of money over here at the treehouse.
Now, what you just saw there is, look, he's getting ready to tell a lie because he says, I don't know, somebody said something. He knows who that was, and he knows what he's telling is a lie because he's about to tell a lie. And the stress, he lets it out. Because you can tell how uncomfortable he is. And what he also was trying to do is he's coming up with the story. Because if he's telling the truth, he's just going to tell you the truth, right? But what he's doing there is he's trying to figure it out because that was the first thing he had to figure out. Oh, how did this come up? We're playing dominoes. That part might be true. That might have been where the genesis of this whole thing comes, that they're playing dominoes. And Rory says, hey, dude, we need to get high. We're out of money. Hey, dude, we're going to do it. Probably, if potentially Tyrone might have said something to the effect, guys, don't do this, because we heard from O'Quinn. That's the type of guy he would have been. And he might have departed. They're shooting, they're drinking fireball shots. There's another gentleman there, and they're probably all there, and they're talking about it. And then these two guys decide, no, we're going to do it, dude. It's easy. And Rory probably, easy, in and out, man. I can get in and out. I know the place. And he says, all right, let's go jump in the car then. I'll take you down there. I'll show you how easy it is. That's the genesis of when these two bozos walk up on Paula, and he shows them. And then they circle back around, and you see the circle back around. And then they go, okay, it's on, baby. We're going in. And they go in and the whole damn thing blows up on them. But just watch this. It's really interesting. But this is the moment. This is the first telling ever of the story that involves Tyrone Tucker. This is the moment that they get to go out and arrest Tyrone Tucker. And this is the first time this story, and as you can see, this story's never been told. This is why there is no prior consistent statement that would ever be admissible in court, because he's never given a statement until she just went through the entire scenario, and he now is going to try to process this and put it back to her. And that's why he said, I'm scared to death. I don't want to tell the wrong story. Why don't you just tell me? Why can't you write me a statement and I'll sign it? Because she says, we got to hear it from you. So now he's going to try to do his best to tell the exact same story she just told in his own words, adding in Tyrone Tucker. Let's listen.
A bunch of stuff. And the next thing they're saying, well, let's go get some. And I said, well, I don't, where do I come in this? They said, just park right there, look it out, you just do whatever. And I said, okay. And I did, and I pulled up, they got out, and I saw them running, and I got scared to death, and I took off. And I went back to the house, and they came back, and divvied up the money between the two of them, gave me a $50 bill to put in my truck for gas, and we went on from there. And I've been going on from there, and scared to death that, if I opened my mouth or if I said anything or did anything sideways or whatnot, I figured the best thing I could do was just try to keep doing what I was doing and be the right guy and be the right thing.
Travis, I can't tell you.
What he leads to the story he tells is that he's the getaway driver. He waits all the way until he sees them driving and then starts driving away. And left Tyrone Tucker in the middle of the street? And we know that's not true because guess what? Guess what we know? I just presented it to you, Gabby's testimony. See, again, he tells a little bit of the truth because he did get out to the car first. He left. Remember, we know that because he runs down and leaves and is seen by O'Quinn. And he gets in the car. Okay? And then he sees Rory running, and Rory gets in the car, and they drive off. And that's the truth. And we know that's the truth because Gabby saw someone running, getting into a dark, what she described as a Ford car with 4 doors. His truck had 4 doors. Gets in and is running from the scene. Again, little pieces, because we know eyewitness testimony is not something that is exact. It's not something that's reliable, and it's something that has to be pieced together, corroborated with other pieces of evidence, and you have to look at the circumstances surrounding the entirety of the situation, and that's what it tells you. And you take a little piece from what he says. When he's going into that, he was trying to figure out what's the story, and he tries to tell as vague a story as close to what he says, and then you see him do that little gesture. He leans in towards the detective with this little childish look as if to say, did I do a good job? Is that what you want to hear? And she kind of gives him the sign. And all cameras are pointed towards him and not her because we don't know what they're doing. We don't know what it looks like. We don't know what the gestures are. We just know that there's a body camera on him capturing this entire exchange. But there you have it, guys. This case originated because of a Facebook post. Because Ty Tucker went to FanFest and posted the wrong photo. Then he went and did a favor for a friend. And then he went and got drunk. Passed out. Woke up. And little did he know, the seeds for a complete nightmare had already been planted. And then several days later, he's dragged in to the police department. And ultimately, because the detective sees that picture and he goes and pays a phone bill with the wrong guy, ends up ultimately becoming the other guy in this picture. The police begin to believe it's him. They finally figure out that it's not him and that it was actually Travis Johnson that Ty doesn't own a black truck, that it's not Ty's truck on there, it's Travis's. And suddenly Detective Malone has a big problem on her hand because she's yet again messed up another case, made another mistake. She's probably in hot water. You know, we don't know this. We can just assume that if there were problems, some of this was brewing up. This is the mindset. She's got to admit to Penny Phelps and say, I was wrong, ma'am. No. So Danielle Malone is hell-bent on it. Once Miss Phelps goes in on it, she's not going to let go of it because she doesn't want to have to say she's wrong. And Pitcher's just kind of there because Pitcher's the one guy. He's the one weak link. He gives a deposition. He blows the whole thing off because guess what? He was never convinced himself of what was going on. He was just going along, and he was always a little uncomfortable. And he ends up being the one who makes some confirmations, who ultimately results in the civil suit, results in giving testimony that blows the lid off this thing, and ultimately ends up pointing everyone in the direction that we're at right now. Unfortunately, state of Florida, the judge in this case decides he's not dismissing the case. He decides he's going to protect the bureaucracy and the system down in Key West. And that, again, just like you heard Captain Phelps say, you heard everything you need to hear on how they view him. This Ty Tucker came from the warehouse. He is the bad guy. He was just a crackhead, homeless guy who, do you think you're going to let the bureaucracy go down? People's jobs, good people, good law enforcement agents, good cases that were made that could end up being jeopardized go down because of him, a homeless guy? Oh, but what they didn't understand was sometimes the homeless guy knows people. Sometimes there's people behind that homeless guy, that guy that's down there using drugs. There's people that care. And when you pick on the wrong guy, those people that care step up. And his wife's, well, now wife stepped up. And other people around him have rallied. And now he's where he's at. And now we're going to find out this week, maybe next week, whether or not 12 people in Key West are going to say he's guilty or not guilty. And if they say he's guilty, well, there's a lot more questions I think that are going to have to be asked because that state has fallen way short of its burden. And I think we can say for certain, if you saw the genesis of what began, this is what Ty Tucker was trying to get into court. He's been trying to get that into court. The judge would not let it in. He's trying to figure out how to get it in, but you've seen it. The public's seen it. You got to put eyes on it, and you got to make sure people know. That's what happened. That's where he got his story from. This story didn't originate. Prosecutor Mansfield doesn't get to put in a prior consistent statement from 2022 and say that that is a consistent statement because there is no prior consistent statement that didn't originate with Captain Phelps. Period. End of story. So we'll see what happens, guys. We'll see what this week brings. But everybody needs to have their eyes down there in Key West, watching this case, watching what's unfolding. Until we talk again, let justice prevail, and I will talk to you soon.